Three, two, one. All bubble
All
blowing
bubble
babies will
blowing
be
babies
beaten
will be beaten
senselessly by
senseless
every
by every
able-bodied
able-bodied
patron in the
patron in
bar.
the bar. Hi,
Hello,
welcome to CampyCast. I'm Brian,
I'm
as always,
Anthony.
and
Welcome
today
back.
we're going to be discussing. Uh, sorry, were you going to say?
SpongeBob, this SpongeBob
Yeah,
movies. Now, kind
SpongeBob.
of mentioned this idea quite a lot in the past, I'd say.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know, we kind of like, because my PFP to this day is still Squidward on a chair, which,
yeah.
Squidward's classic Squidward image that you might have seen online. I don't
Hmm.
know. I was thinking of switching it at some point, but I'm probably going to keep it like that because it's become kind of iconic for me. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. Well,
I guess we did the
yeah,
same thing with Brian with American Psycho, even though we switched to
yeah. Well,
iconic
you
as well.
changed it in the profile, so it's not quite the same anymore.
Yeah, but at the time,
But
who knows? Maybe we'll do a Family Guy episode on seasons.
well, we did the sub episode, but someday.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
Someday, I gotta dump all my Family Guy thoughts. But anyway, we're here today. We're not talking about Family Guy, sadly. We're
Yeah,
talking about the other show that was really important and long running in the year
SpongeBob
1999.
SquarePants
Now,
for
now
the.
before we get into the three films, should we briefly explain our thoughts on a SpongeBob as a series? I
I
know it's
think
very
it's kind of
iconic.
the same as
I know.
most people. It was good in season
Yeah.
1 to 3, then it kind of went downhill,
Mhm.
and now modern days, they're all
Yeah.
dependent on these stupid pieces of humor, such as
Yeah.
these overly exaggerated, wacky faces that just annoy me. And it's like, yeah, I understand the first couple seasons, the first had these faces, but not only were they done sparingly, but like at this point they weren't this excessive and annoying.
Yeah. See,
They were done
hot take
sparingly.
personally, but I think that SpongeBob right now is in its worst era. That's a hot take, I know, because everyone's always like, but season 6 to 8, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's true. Seasons 6 to 8 did suck, but I think that's less of like the writers being completely incompetent and just them not knowing what they were doing. Because they were following up the first three seasons, which are some of the best comedic television, at least in terms of animation I've
Yeah,
seen.
I
It
still
was like,
laugh hard at all these of a bunch of
yeah,
episodes. Like, I think we
the
could spend an entire episode like just talking about our favorite episodes from the first 3 seasons.
I could go an hour about why the spiky cleats joke is the best joke in
Yeah,
existence.
SpongeBob meets the
The
Strangler.
with these spiky cleats, anything is possible.
Yeah,
Then he steps on.
there's a lot of great SpongeBob episodes, but I'm pretty sure you all know all the classics in season 1 to 3.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We could go on that forever,
Yeah,
but
with the
yeah. Uh,
painters, the band geeks, the
SpongeBob meets the
chocolate.
Strangler, underrated classic. Uh,
Yeah, a bunch of classics to this day.
Gary takes a bath, also underrated classic. People skip on that episode too much. I'm
Yeah,
just
but
gonna say that.
yeah,
But,
but there's movies now. SpongeBob has
yeah,
been milked to death by Nickelodeon, and I'm pretty
yeah,
sure like you all know the whole thing with like Nickelodeon running SpongeBob into the ground now,
yeah,
and it has now just become like a shell of its former self in terms of like
yeah.
comedy and just like pure corporateness. They make a bunch of spin-offs. They made Baby SpongeBob, which went against something Steven
There's the
Hillenburg
Patrick
said,
Star Show,
which
which is
which I
actually the most brain dead thing I've ever seen. I hate it so
Patrick is
much.
dumb and stupid.
It's
It's
not even
so
just that Patrick's stupid. It's just that the entire thing has no narrative, and it's just things happening and faces. It's like
I've heard
sensory
this show is
overload.
really bad from what I've heard.
Genuinely, modern SpongeBob and like the Patrick Show are making kids stupid. It's like dangling
Exactly. Exactly.
dangling keys in front of
It is
toddlers.
no
That's what it
longer
is.
a show for all ages like it was meant to be in
Yeah,
season 1 to 3. It is now just a toddler's
yeah.
paradise, it feels
See, I
like.
could make a whole like thing about how SpongeBob's declined. I know in the cartoon community, everyone's done that, but it's not even like season 7, 8 stuff
SpongeBob
that's
used to
annoying.
mean something to so many
Yeah, I know,
people,
and
and now it's
arguably,
just
I think SpongeBob, at least in those first three seasons, is some of the smartest like animation for young children, right? Because thing is, the show constantly rewards you for like being an adult and paying attention to what's happening because there's so many jokes you could they load so much gags in that you're rewarded for constantly rewatching episodes and getting new gags you might have missed, or just laughing at a bunch of stupid like shit. It's good. But now it's like I said, literally toddler shit, and it just kind of depresses me
Yeah, it
in a
just
way
makes
what
it like hard
SpongeBob
to
has
watch
become.
because this show used to be like freaking hilarious
I
at
know.
times. It was such
It's
a
like it's
great
degraded
show.
so much. It's not even the same
It was
show
a show
anymore.
for
Like,
everyone. Okay, it was always.
yeah.
I still love those classic seasons to this
Oh, I
day.
definitely do.
Yeah, they
I
hold
did a
up well.
rewatch of the first three seasons like late last year, and those frankly most of those like still hold up
Probably
aside
some of
of
the
a
like
few mentioned.
funniest and most like unique
Yeah,
comedic kids cartoon media that I have seen.
yeah,
It's been
definitely.
appealing to so
And
many
even
younger
like
people.
some of the later stuff, like there's a couple, 4, 5, a couple in season 6. There's still a couple episodes from later that I still really like, but I don't know. It just isn't the
Even
same
then, a
anymore
lot
as we
of the
famously
highs
said.
of those late seasons can't match some of the highs of season.
Well, that's
I mean,
yeah, that's definitely true.
some of them are good, but like
Like I
those,
don't know, Mimic Madness ain't exactly gonna be a wet painters, you know,
yeah,
not quite the
still a good
same.
episode, I'd
But
say. But
yeah,
yeah,
but it's not a great,
yeah,
it's not
but
a top tier SpongeBob
I've seen a
episode.
lot of SpongeBob, but yeah,
I have
it's
seen all of seasons 1 to 11 fully, and I think 12 after is a blur. But everything I have seen from then
I've
is
seen
like
all, yeah,
disgusting. Like
I've
SpongeBob's Bad Habit.
is that's the
It,
one where he gets addicted to biting his nails and it's just
yep,
disgusting. And I
that
remember
one.
seeing that air and I thought like, what is this? What SpongeBob is now? Like even
This is what
like when I
SpongeBob is
saw
now.
that randomly air at one point, I was like, what? What is this?
It gives me a headache, genuinely, just looking at it. It's too much.
Yeah, it's
Too
just
much. Oh, and that's not even to mention all the nostalgia they do for the golden era.
oh, it's the
Remember
guy.
Remember
It's
Goofy Goobers? Remember
it's
Bubble Bass?
Nosferatu. Yeah,
Yeah,
you remember
remember
that?
him?
Like they just missed the point of these gags. It's because they were so sparingly done in the early seasons, and now they
Remember
hammer it in
Dennis and the Tattletale Strangler? You remember these guys? It's
with
just
these iconic characters. Let's bring
too
them
much.
all. It's
They don't
stupid.
even bring them back for good reasons, because the Nosferatu joke is famously
It's funny
funny
because it
in
is
Graveyard
so
Shift
random,
because yeah, it's such a stupid resolution.
but
Like they're
so
like,
funny.
if that was you on the bus and you on the phone, then who was flickering the lights? And the twist is it was
Nosferatu.
a famous 1920s silent horror villain, Nosferatu.
Uh-huh.
Like, okay, it's such a funny out of nowhere
Yeah.
ending.
It's like
Then bringing it back lessens that impact.
I
It's
just
just
can't imagine like how good this show really would have been if it ended after 3 seasons and the movie.
yeah, no, it kind of already is. But if it ended, then SpongeBob would be like
Amazing.
considered one of the best shows just of our time. It
Yep.
was so much.
Anyways,
Really, there isn't gonna be another show like SpongeBob SquarePants. I
probably not.
recommend this. Yeah, I recommend this video by Amp Lemon that goes into this very well. He has a really good SpongeBob video about like its impact. But yeah, I don't know. It really is just like we've said, just kind of sad because if it did end, then it would be one of the best. But really, I don't think my like memories with those first 3 seasons, and even just my nostalgia for a lot of it. As a kid, they aired all the seasons like practically equally, so I got to grow up with both good and bad SpongeBob when I was younger. But even still, I can like ignore the later stuff just to appreciate early SpongeBob. But yeah, just
Anyways,
kind of. But anyway, that's enough a pre-ramble about
yeah,
how good the show
speaking
used to
of the
be and how it
show
wasn't.
supposed conclusion, let's move on to that iconic first SpongeBob movie in
Yeah.
2004.
All right. Yeah.
The
So
SpongeBob
famously, yeah,
SquarePants movie, the
yeah,
very
very
first
blatantly
OG
titled.
one.
So the first thing, blatantly, I think everyone knows this story, so I won't spend too much time on it, but I'll just briefly mention. The main idea that they were going for with this film is, all right, so we had 3 seasons, we had a good run. We can use this movie as like a conclusion to the show if we want to. We can end the show here. And then they didn't, because Nickelodeon famously wanted more money off SpongeBob.
Money.
And even though from an artistic standpoint that doesn't make sense, I will give them some mild credit. SpongeBob was like fucking everywhere in the early 2000s. There was SpongeBob everything, as you can like blatantly tell See, I get that. But yeah, if it did end here, we would have had a very great end. 'Cause I think this is a fantastic little film.
It
I'd
is.
have
It's
to
really
say.
good. I definitely understand why this film is so respected among animation fans because it's like it's everything it needed to be and
Yeah,
more, and it works really well. It's like the perfect conclusion to it.
yeah,
And to this day, people still consider it like the ending to it, like just that
yeah,
everything everything after this movie that came out just takes place before this movie, which is something I would like to
yeah.
get because this is like the perfect conclusion. And sure, SpongeBob has some of has very all over the place continuity, so I can go all day of how it doesn't make sense. But at this point, I just stopped caring about
I
SpongeBob's
don't. I think
continuity.
technically the movie still is the finale. Like, if you want to
Yeah,
say there's a SpongeBob timeline that's there, that's why there's no like Krusty Krab 2 or whatever. But I don't know. SpongeBob's not the type of show that needs a big finale because there
no,
is no story. But what it does feel very satisfying if you're like watching it.
it's like
I
it's
think it
the
would have
perfect
been.
way to conclude this
Yeah.
series, and it's
See, I've had
perfect.
like a Yeah, I've kind of had a weird relationship with this movie. I've never disliked it, obviously not. It's a great old time. But I've always kind of had this like perception in my mind that it's not as funny as pre-movie. At least that's what I've used to like think a lot. And I think part of me still holds that. I wouldn't say like comedy-wise this is like on par with like the best of the first three seasons. But even still, there's still a lot of really good bits in this. I've kind of warmed up to it over time. I think like rewatching it for this podcast, it was like my seventh or sixth viewing of it. So it's
Yeah,
definitely
I've seen
doing
this movie
something
quite
right.
a lot as well. Yeah.
It's very rewatchable. I can give it that. Like it's a
Mhm.
quick, like I think like a little over 80 minutes. You can just go
Yeah,
in and
not a
out.
long
That's
movie, which works well for SpongeBob.
It's very well paced. I guess we'll say
Yeah,
that
I
much.
think
It
this
goes very.
story here is really like great with Plankton now being like the most villainous he's been in this entire franchise, with SpongeBob and Patrick needing to go on a journey to Shell City
Sound
in
shitty.
ordering to get the King Neptune's
The
crown, in ordering
crown,
to stop
Neptune's
Mr.
crown.
Krabs from dying.
Yep.
And yeah, and I know characters like Squidward and Sandy don't play much prominence, but like I honestly still don't mind that in this instance because I
Yeah,
think the movie does a good job at focusing on SpongeBob and Patrick's journey of like
yeah,
I think it has a great message which I really liked, which I'll
yeah. No, the
delve more
message
into
is.
later, but
See, I've
yeah.
heard at least from what I've heard from people, I've heard them say that like their biggest criticism is the lack of like side characters. They're like,
Heard a lot of
where's
criticisms
Sandy
about
and
that.
Mrs. Puff only get two lines? Like, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
like yeah.
you don't really add like. I don't think they would add much to what the story is. It works
Yeah, I
perfectly
think it
well the
works
way it
well as a
is.
Sponge and Pat adventure. I think like
Kind of, we
plus
don't like. Where am I gonna put like Squidward in this?
I
Well,
mean,
not Squidward, but
Squidward does
where
get
like
a couple of good
not
moments, like his
Squidward. Like
interaction
where do
with
we put
Plankton.
like the dirty bubble in this? Like we don't need random
These
SpongeBob
random
characters.
side characters, yeah, we
We don't
don't.
need Larry the Lobster like doing things to Perch Perkins. We're like good. We don't need like we just well actually Perch Perkins gets it. But you know what I mean? We don't need like other side characters in this like much. Which I think Sponge Out of Water does that kind of well, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
Um,
I like, yeah, those the lack of Squidward in this movie. He does get one great moment, like the scene where he goes to the chum bucket and like, and just like solves Plankton's evil plan, and then he just like that was a fun moment. I think I
Mr.
like that.
Krabs, who's gonna sign my
Who's
paycheck?
gonna sign
He
my
gets,
pen? I love that. That joke was fun. This movie's really funny. There's a lot of great
yeah,
jokes, such as the iconic King Neptune crown gag, like his
crown, Neptune's crown, which is now
bald,
Shell City goodbye.
bald,
Oh,
bald. That still makes me laugh. I don't know why. It's just so
yeah,
funny because like how
yeah,
impactful and like
yeah. My eye.
yeah,
Such a
these are
such
iconic
a
gags
good bit.
for a reason. And like we said before, the bubble blowing babies thing. That's funny.
Yeah.
I
My
still
favorite gag is drunk
Oh
SpongeBob.
yeah, same. Waiter. I still laugh. I
Wait
always. That's like the
for. Like, I
funniest
love the
thing
way
in the
he's
movie
like
to me.
animated, like he's just hung over
I like
the
the
next
idea
day.
of SpongeBob getting drunk on ice cream. That's what's
Yeah,
so
it's
funny
really
to me. I
funny.
just like the
And then
idea
the
of
scene
that.
where he's yelling at Mr. Krabs, it's animated really well, but it's really funny.
Yeah.
He's like so
Uh-huh.
over the top,
Also,
he
the
takes
animation
over
is
it.
a nice step up from the show in terms
Oh
of
yeah,
like
it looks
the
great.
yeah, it looks
Like
nice. You can definitely tell it aims for a more
crisp.
theatrical thing. It's definitely
Very
crisp and
it's very colorful, everything like pops. It's just
yeah,
very like
SpongeBob always
nice to
had
look
like a
at.
unique style, which is why it appealed to so many people. So like it's nice to see that like on the big screen in this like theatrical type way. And
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
that's that yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like yeah, it's nice to see that as well. And the plot is just very fun of SpongeBob and Patrick going on this like road trip to
We don't have like a lot of plot, but it gives way to a lot of like good situations because that's like a little road trip thing. They can stop at a couple places, like the gas station where the guys laugh at them and they get their
movie,
the
mustard
car
or
gets
ketchup.
yeah,
That still
the
makes
car
me
gets
laugh those.
hijacked immediately.
And
It's
then
like,
they just like start laughing at them because they lasted more than
how
that
long
was
was that? Yeah, that's
it's
great.
funny, yeah. There's a lot of good gags here. Also the ice cream stand thing that still is just fun. There's a lot of fun
Yeah, I like
obstacles
the
of their
design.
journey. It's very
Yeah,
entertaining. I like some of the music, such as the now that they're men song. That was great.
but it's great. I
Yeah.
prefer the Goofy Goober jingle.
That's also great, yeah. I also like want to touch upon the message that I mentioned earlier. I think this movie has a great message that fits with SpongeBob because SpongeBob's always known as a character who always embraced his inner child despite working at the Krusty
Fast
Krab and
food
having a job
restaurant.
and whatnot. And
Yeah,
he always embraced his inner child, and it led to people like treating him like a kid and whatnot. And it's nice to see that it's okay, and him accepting this by the end of it. And I think it's a good arc for him to go through that fits
yeah,
with the theme of the show really well. And I think that's
yeah,
why the ending and overall conclusion of this for SpongeBob and why so many people like think this is like just the perfect conclusion to the show is because of that message. So
yeah, exactly. I think I forget if it was Hillenberg. I know someone on like the staff like at least described it as like SpongeBob. He was always written as like an adult, like through like the mind of a child, because really he's no different from like Squidward. He has this like
he even
same sort
goes
of
to like
dead
a
end
boating
job.
school, so like he still
Yeah,
has like
same sort of.
child qualities about
Well,
him.
yeah, that was actually Nick's compromise. They wanted SpongeBob to go to school, but
Yeah.
Steven Hillenberg didn't want to make him a child. So, like, all right, his compromise will be he'll go to boarding school,
Yeah,
and that'll be the
that's a
story
nice
goes.
turnaround for that. Yeah, I'd say that
Yeah,
went well.
but then I don't like because he's really not that different from Squidward in terms of like age or like situation. But then his outlook on life and how he's like looks at everything from like a childlike perspective is how things end up like different for him, which is kind of like the whole conceit of the show and why Squidward and SpongeBob's dynamic is so good. But it's like a natural direction to take a movie like this to like kind of
Yeah.
expand on that and like add to that. And yeah, you get a really good arc about it because at the end of the day, he's like, yeah, he's a kid, but that doesn't mean he's like inherently bad. He did all that stuff. He defeated the Cyclops and did I forget the exact speech, but his speech at that part's really good too. And then we get the Goofy Goober Rock after that,
Yeah,
the
that's fun.
classic.
It's a great conclusion. I also like the stuff with Plankton taking over the
Oh
entire
yeah,
Bikini
Plankton.
Bottom.
Plankton's great in this movie. He's really funny, but this is one of the only times I feel like you're actually like supposed to take Plankton as a threat because you
Yeah,
kind of
at
forget
times he's
about that.
taken as a joke because like I like the scene where SpongeBob just completely steps on him and just like just glosses
No,
over his evil
that part's so
intentions.
good. His scream is so visceral and
Yeah,
over
it's
the
so
top.
funny. It's like it also is just nice to see him treat like an actual threat with him literally enslaving the entirety of the Bikini Bottom. It's like at this point, what do you do with this guy, you know? Like this is the best like his plan has like worked out. So like I feel like yeah, it's just like a really good plot and I think it works like
Yeah,
really well. It's the perfect conclusion to this show and I like definitely understand like
definitely.
why it just works really well in a lot of areas.
Oh
And
yeah,
like
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
I'm trying to think
yeah.
of my other
It's just like
notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fun
Oh, yeah.
journey. There's
I love
there's a lot of good
the
jokes.
live action bits when they get
Oh
up
yeah,
there. They
that.
incorporate all that's inserted really well. Like the design of the
Yeah,
Cyclops and
it's
everything. He's like a neat character, and they do and it's such a funny bit when they meet David Hasselhoff,
yeah, David
celebrity
Hasselhoff
David.
who
Yeah,
who
he's just
freaking
there for some reason,
swims
and
them to the
yeah,
Bikini Bottom. That was
yeah,
funny. It's very
yeah.
bizarre, but it's a good example of SpongeBob surrealist
Oh yeah,
humor
definitely.
that works well.
If you look at the behind the scenes of this movie, it's really funny. They built a miniature model of David Hasselhoff that looks like him for the shots where you're not looking at his face. They just had
Oh,
a giant David Hasselhoff statue. It was
oh my
really
god.
it looks really stupid, but it's funny for the thing. That whole climax is good too. I forgot to mention Dennis.
Yeah,
Dennis is a
the
great
bounty hunter
character.
that chases
Yeah,
SpongeBob and Patrick. Yeah, that
yeah,
he's
I
funny.
love his design too. He looks great. He's
Yeah,
played by Alec
Alec Baldwin.
Baldwin
Yeah,
for some reason. Yeah,
yeah,
he
that's
does
funny.
great.
Yeah, he's a fun character. I like his. I like. I think he just works well. I like the way SpongeBob defeats him. That was funny.
Oh yeah, he uses the bubble.
The
Yeah.
bubbles and yeah, the
He
scene
offers
at
him goober dollars. He
the
sadly doesn't accept.
one of the
But
funniest scenes is probably every scene at the bar. Like I still laugh really
oh
hard
yeah,
at the Patrick scene where he says, "Excuse
I
me,
have to use the
I have to
bathroom.
use the bathroom." And then and yeah, that's funny. And also the bubble scene is also great with them having to resist the urge to sing the Goofy Goober song.
Yeah, and then for some reason there were other guys there that were conveniently also
Yeah,
big Goofy Goober
this
fans.
movie is
They're
really
also stuck
funny.
together.
It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's why SpongeBob is probably one of the most iconic shows because of its
yeah, exactly.
cartoonish humor that works well. But now
Mhm.
it's mostly just now in modern ages, it's mostly just dependent on annoyingly exaggerated faces. That was
Yeah.
yeah, and like I
Well, see,
said,
this movie has really good expressions in parts too. That's why it's really funny.
it's sparing
Distinctly,
as
I
well. It's not
remember.
like the characters aren't constantly
Yeah,
shifting and
but it's not
moving.
the
They're
point. The funny
slime.
thing is what I'm mainly thinking of the posing in the part where SpongeBob's drunk SpongeBob is yelling at Mr. Krabs. See, the way he's animated in that part is really funny. But that's not the joke. The joke is that he's really, really fucking pissed they didn't get fired and he's hungover, so he's not gonna act rationally. So that's what's funny about it. The
Yeah.
face isn't the joke to that.
Yeah,
And
it's just Tom Kenny just acting drunk. That's
oh
the
yeah, he's
appeal of
great.
that scene. Yeah, the
Yeah,
voice acting has always been good for SpongeBob. I've
oh
seen
yeah, definitely.
nitpicks in the past of people having issue with celebrities like Scarlett Johansson appearing in the movie, and I'm all
I've
like,
been.
I've heard stuff like that, but I don't know. That never really took
To be
issue with
honest,
me at
I didn't
all.
know she when I was a kid. I didn't pick up on that at least for
It
a
never
couple of
thought
years.
it felt
I got to look
off.
it up
It never
to
felt off to
realize
me
it.
at all. Plus, there isn't it's
No,
not like this movie is filled with celebrities, so it doesn't really
yeah, we don't
bother me
have
at
Chris
all.
Pratt as SpongeBob, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. We
But
don't have stuff like that, so it's not bothering me. It doesn't bother me at all.
no,
But
no, not me either.
yeah,
Not really.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I don't really understand those type
I
of
don't know. On
issues,
the
but
topic of voice acting, I think I've seen some people point this out that at least SpongeBob's voice here is higher pitched to it compared to how it is in the first three seasons. And then after season four, they make him a higher pitched after this. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's something I've
I don't really
like.
know. I
Yeah,
never
I
really
don't know. I don't
noticed
know if
that.
you noticed that. This is just a criticism. Half criticism I've heard with the movie before, and SpongeBob's just the show in general. But I didn't notice that too much. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is kind of a turning point in a way though, because there are I think some things from the movie after that get brought into the show. I don't know if you noticed this. This is the first time you see Karen not just as the big computer screen, is the actual robot that moves around.
Oh,
She
really?
never is. Yeah,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
never. Yeah, it's weird because everyone thinks she
Never
looks like
noticed
that.
that.
But in the first three seasons, she's always just at that big screen, and she never moves around
It's a
anything
good
else.
point.
Probably
Yeah,
because
Plankton didn't
Karen
appear
is
much in
weirdly,
the early
yeah,
seasons,
which is it's
as
so
much as he
weird. Thing
does
is,
nowadays.
Plankton is this iconic SpongeBob character to everyone, and obviously he is. He gets some great episodes in the first three seasons,
Yeah.
but really, there's only I think a dozen Plankton episodes in the first 3 seasons,
Yeah,
and then like after the movie is when he and Karen became more prominent. So really,
much
I
more
think
prominent, and like he
yeah,
was
you
in
can.
the first 3 seasons, and that's why I think he works well as an antagonist for this
Yeah,
movie.
Plankton's the only character that's like been mostly the same and hasn't gone for like character assassination much.
I mean, yeah, because
That's
like, what are
good.
you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do with this guy in terms of
You
assassinating
can't
him?
ruin Plankton,
Yeah, he's
but
just a fun villain.
yeah,
He's
and I think like it's not entirely on the movie to thank for this, but I don't know. I feel like it does kind of famously it marks the end of the first 3 seasons. So that's like a turning point. But in my mind, it just always like symbolized an end of like an era. SpongeBob in a way. Like I don't know. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean. It just,
yeah.
I think it's neat,
One of the
but
yeah, there's like another example of surrealist humor that always made me laugh was the random thing when King Neptune tries to unfreeze Mr. Krabs and he just turns
oh
into
yeah,
like a real well, it's like a
real boy
yeah,
ending.
it's like funny because like
I like
okay,
the stupid way Mr. Krabs looks during that.
yeah.
But oh
Why
yeah,
is it
there's another
funny?
thing
I don't know, but it
with,
is.
with Neptune. That's another thing. I think before this, the only Neptune episode was Neptune spatula, which is just like
He has a
a
different design in that one,
which is
and
just
that
like a
always
fine one. I don't know.
confused
I
me as
don't
a
care.
kid because I know that in the show
Yeah,
King Neptune has like a completely different design than he does in
I
this
think there
movie,
was
and that
there
always
was something
confused me
with
when I
that
was a kid.
because like I don't know the exacts on this, but at least from what I've heard, they had like stipulations on this movie, which is like they couldn't use certain things from the show or couldn't use too many characters from the show, which I think makes this movie make more sense because like that's why there's not that many side characters. That's why Neptune looks completely different. That's also kind of why see there are like some characters that you think would be inserted that aren't because like there's I don't think we mentioned it but the whole opening with the pirates they find
Oh yeah, the pirates
tickets for the
stuff.
SpongeBob
Yeah, I
movie like
love
they
that
do that whole
opening. I
thing
thought it was like
and like it's they
really.
have it and if you watch the show like the average person going to the theater who hasn't seen SpongeBob won't question this but if you're going into it knowing the show at least that's what I thought as a kid I was like well, how come Patchy's not there? They have pirate characters, but there's no
Yes,
Patchy,
that's
right?
why Patchy's
Which,
not in this
which
movie.
yeah, that's why they just couldn't, and that's why they like had a bunch of stuff that isn't from the show in terms of characters. That's why we got Mindy. That's why we have Goofy Goobers because they couldn't use like any other location. They weren't going to go to Weenie Hut Juniors or
Or
anything.
Super Winnie
They,
Hut Shooters.
for Weenie Hut Juniors. They
Yeah.
weren't gonna do anything like that. Which I guess it makes the movie more distinct. Like I don't know, you're not gonna see Dennis in like the average SpongeBob episode. It definitely has a vibe to it.
Yeah, and I think
I
that's like the
appreciate.
appeal of just seeing these
Yeah,
characters like
yeah,
in this like one movie, you know? I
yeah.
think that's
I
what
don't.
makes it
Yeah,
work well. It's kind of weird if we
yeah.
see
I don't
these
think
characters
the.
like beforehand now, especially since
Yeah,
the later seasons are supposed to like take place before the movie. So
yeah.
like,
Oh
yeah.
wait, I think I realized some update on that. I think it's because they were working with Paramount on this like the first movies. I think they had all
Yeah, I
the
think they work
stipulations
on
for it.
yeah, I think they just work on Paramount with these movies.
Well, that's I think yeah, that's why they were able to because this is
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
it's
they
like the
do. They
main
work on
studio
Paramount with all
behind.
these movies. That's like how.
Yeah, I don't think they had the stipulations for the other movies, which is why it's way more focused on all the SpongeBob cast. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
just
again, yeah. That's why the yeah. That's probably why the sequel to this, which we'll get to soon, focuses on like the entire like focuses on much more of the side characters in terms of
yeah.
yeah.
Also, I am kind of glad they got that stipulation because not to go on a SpongeBob tangent, like on the show too much, but I don't think Neptune gets anything that good in the show ever. He has a really bad episode in season 6, but that's besides the point. This is kind of like the only fun Neptune thing they ever get out of him. 'Cause he's really funny in this movie, but in the show he doesn't really get anything. He gets the bald bit. It's
Ball,
thinning.
ball.
And oh, I find it really funny when like Mindy's like, "How come King Neptune can't help?" And he's like, "He's too distracted by his
He's just
bald
too
spot."
distracted by his ball. He
And they
cares
do a
about it too
cutaway
much. That's like
to him being like insecure. That's a really stupid, but it's a
yeah.
funny
I
way
just
to
find it funny how
hide
like
everything.
sensitive he gets out of it. It's funny.
Yeah,
It's
thinning.
yeah. It's a great movie. I feel like a lot of the great things that have been mentioned have already been like analyzed and said and
Yeah,
whatnot.
This is a very iconic movie for like SpongeBob fans, so it's kind of been
Yeah,
talked
it
about
has
a
been
lot.
talked about a lot, and
Yeah,
yeah,
I won't say
overall,
it's not undeserved though. You know, it
it
definitely
definitely
earns that
serves it
title.
as a perfect conclusion to the early three seasons. And who knows, maybe we could do those one day. I think we could
Ooh, I
spend like
would like to.
a good proper episode talking about our favorite
Oh, I
episodes,
think
going
we
in
could. We could
depth.
go on a bunch of
Who
episodes if
knows?
we ever
At
want
some
to do
point we
that.
could consider doing that, but we have a lot of other
Yeah,
episodes planned, so yeah. So
yeah,
stay
not
tuned.
soon, but
At some
eventually.
point, maybe we'll do that
Yeah,
because that could be fun. Yeah, I like the
yeah.
design of the paddy wagon thing and the
Oh
square.
yeah,
That was a fun
I
aspect
like
of
how
the road
I
trip.
like. I find it funny they make such a big deal out of that, and then when they get across the county line, the one guy
One
hijacks
guy
it
just
from him, and they're like,
immediately
"Oh,
steals it and like
yeah, it's really
out
funny."
of the car, out of the car, fellas.
They're big.
I like the design of all the like of the monster peak thing and all the monsters.
Oh
That's
yeah,
creative.
when they that part it's real. The now that we're men sequence is really well
I
animated too.
think this
Like
is a hard
all those
movie to
angles.
hate. Like I'd be surprised if anyone like
I don't know
downvotes.
anyone who hates this movie.
Yeah,
Some people think it's like decent or like I don't know. No one dislikes this
I
movie.
think it's generally it's just
Sure.
fantastic. It's amazing. It's generally amazing.
Yeah,
The SpongeBob movie is amazing. Let's just say right here,
yeah,
it's no joke. Just a comedic classic in all the right ways
that
that
is
I'm
true.
definitely going to revisit
Definitely.
in the future
Yeah,
even more. And I've already seen this movie,
100.
like you said. I'll also seen it multiple times. So yeah,
Definitely. I don't think it's. I think I've watched the second movie more times actually. But that's a. I'll get into that in a sec. But
yeah.
yeah.
Anyways,
But,
should we get our ratings? Do you have anything else to say? We talked
we
about
can
most
go
of our
move on in a
favorite
second.
gags and whatnot.
I just have a couple other brief things I'd like to mention. Just two or three things that I'd like to mention, just in terms of gags. One thing is I really love the opening gag. Is really funny to me. SpongeBob beyond the live action bit with the pirates. That part's great too.
Yeah.
But the dream sequence where SpongeBob goes in and
Oh yeah, and it's like and he like takes it
"We ordered a
very
Krabby Patty
serious.
with cheese."
Yeah. No
No
cheese.
cheese.
I find it
And
funny. I
SpongeBob
feel like
really
that works
dramatic
well, is
about
because it's like SpongeBob is just like it shows that like SpongeBob is imagining it, and that's why it's taken so seriously because he takes his job so seriously.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
why I think it works really well as an
Yeah, it's a good
opening.
establishment thing. I like
Yeah.
that a lot.
There's a
And
lot of good stuff in this movie that we haven't. We've talked about most of our favorite jokes. There's probably other ones um we could talk about, such as SpongeBob like thinking that he received the manager role, and then like he and then like he starts repeating everything Mr. Krabs says in his ear into the mic. That's always funny.
didn't even get to choose an image of Squidward that's like happy. They took a
They just
frowning
took the
picture
classic
of
frowning squid. I mean, to be
Squidward.
fair, that is an iconic image. Like, come on.
Yeah, making a scene, and now everything's more embarrassing because I'm repeating into the microphone.
Yeah, I also love
Phone.
the Ocean
Oh,
Man ending. That's always
oh
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, Paris.
manager. This is the greatest day of my life.
Honestly, that would be
Ocean
so
Man.
satisfying. Like, if
Oh yeah.
it's a great
Also,
ending.
the
Just
and
give
now
it.
back to what. So now, okay. So my two final quick notes is I remember seeing this video that was like compiling all of like Plankton's like plans, and apparently it would make a perfect A to Z if you only included his like plans in the first 5 seasons. And people said that season 5 is another good cutting off point, since
Yeah.
4 and 5 are kind of labeled as well, not classic. They're like the silver era
Now it just
of
makes no sense
SpongeBob.
because there's so many plans he has. How does he have like plans A to
Yeah.
C? It's too much. It's just a
Well,
lot.
yeah. So technically, we could have had a perfect A to Y if SpongeBob ended after season 5, but we
Yeah,
never
that's
had
true.
that. So yeah. And finally, just I could go on like forever just mentioning. Oh, I like this gag. This gag's great. This
Yeah,
gag's
same
great.
probably.
Which is like kind of like a lot. One more. I just really like Plankton, like emotionally manipulating everyone. His like fake story when Mr. Krabs told him to take the formula after he had like after he steals it from him. I like that bit a lot.
Yeah.
And then also the one bit there's one joke I don't like. I don't like the part where Patrick flies in and you see his ass. I don't that joke's not very funny. I don't like that part.
Should we get on to
Uh,
our ratings?
and then and I was gonna mention. Did we mention the part where SpongeBob and Patrick almost die, and then
Oh
we do a
yeah,
thing
they
about
fall
that?
off the yeah.
Did we forget?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
that part's weirdly like I don't know. I don't like how they immediately follow it up with the pirates dramatically crying. I feel like it takes away the impact of it a lot. But that's a great scene. Weirdly
Yeah.
dramatic, and SpongeBob slowly decombusting is weirdly animated. Well, but yeah, we've
Yeah.
kind of gone on a lot about this movie. We still have two more to go, so we should
I'm
probably
going
stop.
to give this movie a 9 out of 10.
I would give it a 9-2. Fantastic little film.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess
Uh,
we should move on to the
However,
next
did this
SpongeBob
movie
movie.
have did this movie have rapping?
Did it have live action CG? Did it have
Did it have Bubbles the dolphin?
Was it so bizarre that I have a very hard time comprehending if I even enjoy it? I definitely enjoy it, this movie. SpongeBob, a SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. I remember
Okay.
seeing this in theaters, and
Yeah, yeah, I did too.
my thoughts
It's
on this
nearly
movie
gonna be
just
10
can't.
years old, which breaks my
Oh
brain
wow,
in
yeah,
two.
you're right. Like in two
Because I
years, it's
saw
gonna be
this in theaters. I remember that experience. See, for you lads out there, some brief context. This is I watched this movie a lot when I was younger, so I'm kind of biased towards it. Not in my rating. This isn't like I think I give it a fair rating, but even still, I've seen this movie so many times. So nearly every scene in this movie is like very distinctly. I just remember it all distinctly in my mind. So I guess that's kind of like
Mhm.
out of the three, basically, it's one I'm most experienced with. But even like ignoring my like kind of bias for it, I still think this is decent. It's just it's very very weird, and we can get into that,
It
right?
is so bizarre. And I know, like we said, SpongeBob, the last movie, had bizarre elements, but this takes it to a whole new level.
Nah, see,
And
this
it's
is
like the thing that
so odd.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like the thing I liked the most about it. And like, it's also what holds me back from loving it as much as like, for actually, like, it being surreal is what I like about it. And also, like, what I holds me back from actually in loving it.
see, that's kind of the same for me too. Because thing is, I think this movie, like, genuinely, it has a lot of really funny bits. I think if it were like more focused, it could have been great. Because
It is
on its own,
very all over the place. Like
yeah,
just to open, the antagonist of this movie is Antonio Banderas as Burger Beard, and it's like,
yeah.
okay, and
So
like
to start
it's
off, we get another
bizarre.
live action bit, which is already kind of weird. He fights like a skeleton for this
Skeleton, and then he
book,
meets up with
and
these
everyone thinks he's
talking
going to be the narrator, and he
seagulls.
gives his whole backstory about SpongeBob. I remember that all very clearly. He talks about Bikini Bottom,
It's
SpongeBob,
kind
but
of
then
weird seeing
you get,
SpongeBob being narrated by Antonio Banderas.
yeah,
It
such
was
a
so that
weird
was like the
bit.
first bizarre element here, and then like
I don't understand
he
used to
basically
that.
just kind of states the main theme of the
Yeah,
show, secret formula, Plankton's main goal and motivation, and how the whole thing revolves around the formula just disappearing due to some page that Burger Beard wrote with him stealing the formula, and now SpongeBob and Plankton need to team up in order to get the formula before the Bikini Bottom gets completely destroyed because for some reason the Bikini Bottom just can't live without the secret formula, and I mean without Krabby Patties. But like, I want to mention that quickly. On one hand, I actually think in this movie it leads to a lot of funny moments. Like I love the
yeah.
part where Mr. Krabs is all like dark times are ahead, and then Squidward's like, "Don't you think you're
Aren't you
overreacting a bit?"
overreacting a
And then they
bit?
just cuts to
Welcome to the
him.
apocalypse, Mr.
Yeah,
Squidward.
that still makes me laugh.
Like,
That's a nice cut. But like on one
great.
hand, I feel like at this point, a problem like even when I was younger, I always felt off about is like in the early seasons, I like how SpongeBob was just like this guy who just worked at a fast food restaurant. I think that's where the
Yeah.
appeal was. Um, I
Yeah,
think
no,
it's
it makes
like
it a lot less casual when like the fate of everything is because everyone
yeah,
can't
I like
live
that.
without
I thought
Krabby
that the main
Patties.
joke that I found
They're
funny is that
dying without them.
SpongeBob takes his job so seriously and thinks that his job is the best thing in the world. And it's like kind of weird when everyone else is also like that. I just prefer it when SpongeBob just like sees it that way, if you know what I mean. It's like
Yeah, no, I get that too. I will say I do love all the apocalypse stuff. I because like the transition, like we mentioned, is really funny. They have like like the clothes change immediately, the sun like changes everything just immediately, and then they get a lot of good bits out of that. I like Patrick vandalizing his house, and then
His own
Gary.
house.
We got the Gary King of the Snails bit
Comes
is
the king
great.
of snails
What do you
randomly.
mean, King of Snails?
Sandy
Gary?
becomes a conspiracy theorist.
Oh yeah, that part's really funny. Sandy just
There's a
goes
couple funny jokes we get
insane
out of it, and then
because
out of
it's
nowhere, go on.
just the part because of the fucking page that falls on her house, which is a weird meta thing. Because he's reading the story, but then the story's actually happening. So when he throws a page, it lands underwater, and that lands on her dome. It's kind of the movie's weird with how that works at first, but I think it's funny.
Yeah,
And then like
and then there's like let's talk about the bizarre elements. So the huge part is SpongeBob and Plankton teaming up to find the
yeah,
Krabby Patty secret
do you have a
formula.
fire song about that? Teamwork.
Yeah.
The teamwork song. It's great.
So they end up going back in time when making a time machine in ordering to find it, and then there's like this cool animation sequence that's really creative when they go back in time.
Oh yeah, that part's
Yeah,
great.
and then they randomly end up in this place where with Bubbles, the talking dolphin, and I'm
Well,
like,
yeah,
oh, okay. That was when the movie
well,
started to like, oh, okay. It's
yeah.
something that always like put me.
You don't like Bubbles?
I think it's funny. I think it's
Oh,
a fun
I love
idea.
Bubbles.
I think it's just like
Yeah,
really out of left field, and I feel like it's almost like I don't know. It just feels like everything is just so smashed together. So when we see this
yeah.
just randomly thrown in, it's all like
See, to go
this.
to the time
What?
travel thing,
It
like
also feels like
it
an
is
old.
kind of just yeah, it just kind of happens. Which I
Just kind of
think this
happens.
movie's biggest problem is that it's not paced like an actual movie, like the first
It's not.
movie is. It's
Yeah.
not because like okay, so the apocalypse stuff, I find that all really fun. I love like you mentioned all the great bits there are there, and then it just kind of okay. And there's the SpongeBob and Plankton that dynamic, which I think is the best thing about the movie. Just them working off each other is really fun. But then like after that, we get an unrelated sequence where Plankton tries to break into SpongeBob's mind, and we get this really weird animation sequence, and it looks
Kind
great.
of funny.
I
That
like
was
that.
funny seeing
No,
Plankton's
I find that
reaction
part
to it.
funny too. That's a great bit. But then, like, I don't know. And then, like, there's a teamwork song, and that's great. But then SpongeBob just mentions randomly, he offhandedly mentions, we'd have to, not without a time machine. And then Plankton's like, slow down. And then he says it again. And then, boom, the movie's about time travel. They're breaking back into the chum bucket to get
Yeah.
Karen to build a time machine at this old, like, restaurant that no one's at. It's like, it just kind of
Kind
it's
of
kind of
weird.
much. It just goes all over the place.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I like those bits. When they get into the chum bucket, there are good jokes. I like SpongeBob like almost crushing Plankton again,
Yeah,
and then
that was
his tiny
funny.
piano, and then him fighting Patrick. Those parts are great. But like, all I'm saying is it just doesn't mesh fully. This is like the problem, and that's why it's
Yeah.
not an amazing movie. As is, I think it's a pretty good movie, but
It's
not like
alright.
as is.
I'm always like I've always been mixed on this movie. One minute,
Uh,
when I first watched it, I remember like as a kid, I ended up getting disappointed because they didn't go out of water till like the third act.
Oh, see, no. As a
I
kid,
was,
I fucking loved this movie. I own it on Blu-ray because I had it as a kid. I was like, I
I
loved it that
enjoyed it
much.
still. That was like the one thing that I remember not liking when I first watched it. And
See,
then
it's so weird. They like advertise the out of water aspect,
yeah, it's like
but
they
really, if I'm
advertise it
being
like it's the
honest, that's when the
focus of the
movie.
movie.
The thing is, well, I think that honestly, I think it's a good thing because frankly, when they get above water, it kind of dips for me. Like,
It's
there's
a
still
bit.
some fun bits, but I don't know.
CG's good. I'd say like it looks
The
really
CG looks
good.
nice. It
Like
blends well.
yeah,
I think just it going above water is way, way less of a cool
I
gimmick
know.
than I thought they'd be. Because even if you ignore the first movie, there's Wormy. Well, not Wormy. Not the word. What fuck? Pressure. I don't know why I thought of Wormy. I think it's because it has live action too. There's Pressure where they all go above water and they're all puppets for that brief part.
Yeah, that was
There's
funny.
I want to say there's a couple other episodes where it happens. Point is, SpongeBob going above water is not a cool gimmick at all, and the fact that they advertise the movie as that, I think, is weird. It's not neat. They've done it a
Yeah,
bunch.
they've done it before. It's
And
not
like,
that big of a deal.
yeah, and
Also,
I'm
the
actually
whole
glad that the movie is less like that because we get more of the 2D animation. Which, first of all, I love how this movie looks. It looks so nice.
Yeah, that it
the
does look
colors
great.
and everything.
Yeah,
It
it's
all looks
even a
great.
step visually from the first film, which is
Oh, definitely. It's
understandable
probably like
to see how it evolved.
ideally in my head, it's how I like. This might be my favorite looking SpongeBob thing, not quality, but just in terms of how it's animated, I really like it. But yeah, I just think it's just like neat from that perspective, and even like I don't know to get back to the above water stuff. Like right when they like it just kind of I guess the gags aren't as strong for me, and then it morphs into the superhero thing, and I'm like, well, okay, this just shifted again. Well, what's going on? Why is this about superheroes now?
Yeah, it's
Like,
so weird.
did it even foreshadow that? I don't
No,
even
it
think they
just
do.
comes out of nowhere. So what happens is that SpongeBob just like writes something on this like page, this magical book page that Burger Beard
Yeah,
that has for some reason. Oh yeah, he just like took it, I guess, and it's magic. But yeah.
it's a
Anyways, he
magic
just
book.
wrote it, and then now they're superheroes, I guess, and now it's like okay, and it's like
I don't have a problem with the magic part, and I do kind of like the superhero bit. I like just Sandy looks like a realistic
that was
squirrel.
kind of
That
funny,
part's
even
really
though I
funny.
feel like she should look like a realistic squirrel when they go out of the water. But okay,
Well,
it's
yeah,
still
it would have
funny
been
though.
funny if they did that, but no.
Yeah, it's still
But
funny. I still like
yeah,
the
I like
I like the
Okay, well, I
action.
like some of the designs. I like the design of Mr. Krabs as a superhero robot. Mr. Krabs, he looks
Yeah,
cool.
I like
And then
Squidward. I like the
Squidward,
Squidward
everyone fucking
abs
hates his
gag.
you. Oh yeah, rock hard abs.
Yeah, even
It's pretty
yeah, that was
funny.
funny. Yeah,
Ah,
it's a fun
SpongeBob.
movie. I
Oh,
like
really fun, I'd
yeah, it's
say.
fun to watch. It's just like something I'm just like so mixed on, and it's like I feel like it's I don't know, just like so unfocused and all over the place that I really can't get too into it. And while I find this movie
Hmm.
funny, I do find parts of it funny. Yeah, I
I don't know,
don't
I think
think
it's
it's
like
I don't think it's like a complete comedic riot for me. I don't know. Like I find a
I
lot
don't
of it
know.
funny. Some of it is funny, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Well, but some of it I just laugh at because I'm very nostalgic for this movie, so I'm like, heh heh.
not as
That's
funny
nice.
as the
But
first film,
it's not as the
definitely.
funny. I would say I do think it is one of the funniest SpongeBob things post like
It's kind of a
season
low-ish
five,
bar.
which I know is a low bar, but still, like compared to like even like so this was released in the middle of season nine, which is why season nine has a big gap for people. There's 9A, which is pre Sponge Out of Water, and 9B, which is post Sponge Out of Water, which is when Hellenberg and a couple of the old staff came back
Yeah, Hellenberg
partway through
was
season
involved
nine.
with this movie, so yeah,
Yeah,
you can
I
feel
don't.
that at certain parts.
Yeah, I think he was involved in I think writing it along with some other people. Not as big as a first movie involvement,
You
but
can
still
tell that he hasn't
involvement.
had the most control
Yeah,
by how like all over the place this movie is. Like, because first it's
yeah,
about apocalypse, then it's about them sacrificing. They need to go back in time. Then they need to become superheroes. Like, okay, this is
yeah.
it's a bit too much, and I
Which
like the
I think in a way I like the vibe of this movie because it just kind of insane throughout. It's like okay, we're this now, we're this now. It's not like I don't know. I just think most of the bits are funny, honestly. So I don't like mind like like we mentioned or the bubbles bit. I love him. He's
and
great.
then there's this
Random
random
live action
ass
looking
rap
dolphin.
near the
Oh,
end.
the rap at the end. The rap it makes no sense, but I kind
It
of
is
like it.
so. I
The
still laugh at
dolphin,
it. It's like he just
dolphin,
randomly
bubbles
starts
the dolphin
rapping
comes
with one
back.
of the
The,
seagulls.
oh, the seagulls. Okay, what are your thoughts on the seagulls? Because people find them really annoying. I think they're
I don't know.
fine.
I
I
feel
don't
like
know.
all the stuff with Antonio Banderas just doesn't. It doesn't feel like SpongeBob, and it's like, on one hand, it's like kind of cool. Like Antonio Banderas is having a fun time, I guess. But on the other hand, it's like, okay, this is. It always threw me off like this opening. It always just didn't feel like SpongeBob to me. It felt so
I mean,
off.
I guess I don't know. I'm used to that, but what
I
you
don't
mean
know.
like the beginning? Like, the live action bit is weird.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
sort of. I don't know. He just feels
I don't
so out
know.
of place, but like
I
in a
don't
good
know.
way. But I don't know.
Do
I
you think
have
the
a hard
opening after?
time just like just putting my thoughts into words on this movie. So like, yeah, it's it is hard for
That
me.
is like good though. The Yeah, I don't know. The opening bit, I guess one of my favorite bits is the fucking like when Plankton brings out his tank and his plane. I
Oh yeah,
like
the
the
food war
yeah,
scene.
yeah, that part's really fun.
It's really
Uh,
well animated.
Now it's
It's fun to
raining.
watch.
Thanks.
Yeah,
It's
it's
great.
raining tanks. That was funny. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I like
I love
the.
the part where Patrick's like, "Oh, I just remembered. I
I
don't
don't
work
work
for
here, and he
Mr.
just runs
Krabs,"
away. That was
and then
funny.
he leaves. Well, Plankton's plan in the beginning is weirdly smart. He manipulates the fact that Krabs is cheap, so he hides in a penny, and then that's how he
Yeah,
gets into the safe. The part's weirdly smart for Plankton, since he never gets anything
yeah.
competently. That's a good
I like
bit
the
too.
random ass Squidward dinosaur that shows up.
Oh yeah, see,
Like I
no, the
don't.
time travel bits are really good. I like the bit where they go to the future, and then it's like somehow it's like apocalyptic and filled with sand,
Mhm.
and Patrick has a beard
Yeah,
in like a couple days
like yeah, that was fun.
somehow.
See, there's some
Yeah,
good
and then like
jokes here. There's some good
yeah, and then the
jokes.
bubbles bit. I like when they're there. They for some reason them being there caused the destruction of two planets. SpongeBob tries to hide it underneath the floor that they destroyed
I
two
know,
fucking
yeah.
planets. See, this movie has a lot of really funny things, at least I think. But then it just doesn't come together fully.
Yeah, it's just
At
like
least,
I don't know. I keep getting like I enjoy watching this movie. I have a fun time,
yeah,
but like I
definitely.
just like I don't know. There's just something like about how unfocused and all over the place it is that it's like funny to me, and that's what makes it entertaining. But it also is what makes it feel very messy and all over the place. That kind of hold me
Yeah.
back from like loving it, and that's why I just
See,
think it's
part of me feels
okay.
like some of these ideas they had for like individual episodes, but they like kind of morphed into a
They
movie
all
because you
just
could have had like
morphed into it, you
like
know?
like an apocalypse SpongeBob episode where everyone's insane. That sounds funny. Like the Patrick vandalism bit, like that sounds funny. Like this
Yeah.
bit, there's like a lot of those that I think are funny, but then they don't have everything like together. Wait, how do I describe? Yeah, like it just doesn't all come together well.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know. See, I still really like this movie. If part of me loves it. It's just not an amazing movie by any stretch of the imagination. That's why
Yeah.
I've kind of sounded kind of harsh. Like, really, I could sit down and watch this movie, and most of these things won't bother me. But it just kind of just things I have to note.
Also, now I think about it, the main reason the Bubbles dolphin is introduced is because he's kind of they only need him just so he can just so the gang like the main characters can all like
Yeah,
breathe on the surface. Like besides
yeah.
that, it's just such a weird detour, and
Well,
it's
he
like
technically comes back, but it is weird. I don't mind that bit though. They have like a rule of three thing during the time travel bit. They get three brief time travel gags, then the actual thing happens. But they get the formula, but they grab the wrong bottle, and then that
uh
causes the next bit to happen.
yeah.
I do kind of like that part though, where SpongeBob just goes insane, and
Uh-huh.
everyone's really scared because like, oh my god,
One thing
he's
that
mixing garbage and recycling, and that's like considered his turning point.
one thing I
And then he
want
gives this big like dramatic speech, and then they go sacrifice him. I love that part. But yeah,
one thing I wanted to talk about was just like this one thing I'm like kind of makes on like just criticizing, but like the thing with Plankton getting this like mini redemption thing
yeah,
with like near the end, like I like how he takes this one big dramatic speech about redeeming himself, but then like a minute later he's just back to his old games, and like I understand why that was done, so for the
see, no, they
series to
needed to do
continue.
that, but it kind of
But
feels
like,
like they shouldn't have
yeah, like
attempted an
what
arc.
was
If they
they?
got
Why
nothing.
attempt it if you're gonna forget about it like a minute later? Like that always just put me off. Like, what's the point of that? And it's like a whole minute after he gives the speech, and it's like, okay, I understand it's like gonna be hard to like redeem. I mean, you can't redeem him. You physically can't do that
You
because like
can.
in the first like
And the
in
other
this
movie is supposed to be after this. You quite literally can't,
yeah, and nowadays it even makes the first film make less sense because like I feel like if Plankton was almost redeemed once, it would be weird to see him this villainous now. But like
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I'm blaming this
I don't
movie
mind that.
though
I
on
don't
that
like
though.
SpongeBob continuity.
Yeah,
Like is like
I
fast.
know. It's just like a small thing that always put me off. Like especially with the Plankton redemption. Like why even bother at that point if like he can't be redeemed for the sake of making more SpongeBob episodes? You know? Like, come on. It's a
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
thing to do, just out of nowhere.
I don't
Um,
know.
I like this superhero designs, like you stated. I like
Yeah, no,
the
they're cool. I do like the climax though. Like that part's fun.
yeah.
Like when they actually get into
There's
the
some weirdly
superhero
cool
stuff,
action here,
it's
if I'm
neat.
being honest.
Like the end bit where they're chasing down Burger Beard and they have all that stuff. I think that's fun. I like the gag where SpongeBob keeps dodging the cannons
Yeah.
because of his bubbles.
Uh-huh.
Then he gets hit once and then everything collapses. That's
Yeah.
kind of weird.
Yeah.
Fun, damn it. But
Um.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't
uh,
even. Yeah. I
do I have much more to say? I'm trying to think.
don't know.
You
The
covered it
animation is
mostly.
creative. It's really well
Yep.
written. Like I said, it's a huge step up. It's a step up from the last movie, which already looks great visually. And,
Yeah, definitely.
um.
I'm trying to think. I think I mentioned most of the bits I really like. At
Yeah,
least
I
I'm,
like the action near the end. It's just a film that I'm just very mixed on overall. Like it has stuff that I like, and I overall have a good time with it. And I think it's like the highs it reaches definitely works better than a lot of modern SpongeBob, and I definitely enjoy it
yeah.
more. But like
Like this is like,
as a movie,
yeah,
it's just like I don't know if this was an episode of SpongeBob. They just like if this was like a I feel like it would have worked better if this was just like, even though the movie just feels like a bunch of episodes just Frankensteined together, which kind
it
of
could have been a better TV movie than Atlantis Squarepants or Truth or Square, if
yeah,
we're
all
gonna
those
say something
random
like that.
specials, yeah.
But
But it's
yeah,
it's okay. I have a fun time with this
it,
movie. It's hard for me to hate at all.
I'm like
I know
incapable of
some
hating this
people don't
movie.
like
But
this movie, which is like I understand why some
thing is,
people
I
might not
get
like
that.
it.
It's really
The
just it's a really weird
surrealness may not be
experience.
for
I
everyone.
can see people not like getting into that, but I
Yeah,
don't
and
know.
I'm not
I
fully
like it.
into it, but like I don't hate it at all. I still enjoy it, and it's like I think it got it. I think like my thoughts on this movie always switch. At first, when I first watched it, I liked it, but I had some issues with it. Then I watched it again, and then I thought it was like and then now I just think it's like okay. Like I keep change. I went from liking it to thinking it's meant to not liking it, and now I just think it's okay. I
See,
still just always will have fun with this
yeah,
movie.
I used to love it as a dumb child. Now I kind of like it. Well, no, part of me still loves it, but it's not that good. I can admit that.
Yeah.
I think this is a solid movie that's just very weird and not structured like it should be. But you know what? At least it's fun. And you
Yeah.
know me, I love fun. Want to
Yeah.
get into ratings and
I
jump now?
guess so. I don't really have anything else to say. I'd give this
Yeah.
movie a 6 out of 10.
That is fair. I'm giving this a generous 7 because I think the
Wow.
more we talked about it, the more I get this movie is kind of weird. But I do think, if anything, if this movie wasn't funny, I don't think I would like it at all. But because I do find a lot of this movie really funny and creative and entertaining, I can like forget about the weird story issues. It's there, but I don't really care. So yeah, I'm generous 7 on this one. You've been getting a lot of biased Brian recently, but who cares?
Anyways, I guess we now move on to
This
the
is the
kind
one
of
no one likes.
yeah, this is the most hated out of the three. And I can't say I blame him
By a
because
long shot.
The SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, sucks. It's a
It's
bad
dog
movie.
shit.
Not a good movie at all. I kind of hate
Okay,
this movie.
so the first
I
thing I want to mention, just right off the bat, is first of all, the one thing everyone says, oh, but at least it looks nice. And yeah,
It
it
does look
looks
good.
nice.
It looks
It's a
really
nice
good.
looking
It's
movie,
really like
okay?
color. It's still
But,
colorful and nice,
yeah,
even though it's CG instead of
yeah, which that's the
3D.
thing I was about to mention. See, I don't care that like it looks nice because frankly, like I mentioned, Sponge out of water, I love how that movie looks. We went over that. And now because it's CG now, we're never gonna get a SpongeBob movie that looks like that
Yeah,
again.
what a, no,
And
yeah,
I kind of hate that. So yeah, fuck you,
a lot
Nickelodeon. We're
of
never
other
gonna.
SpongeBob movies were announced, and I saw like leaks of them, and they seem to be in this same animation style. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
and I
like
mean
the
it
Sandy
looks
Cheeks movie
good.
that's
Yeah,
happening.
that one.
That
There's
looks
also one
dog
about the
shit.
Flying Dutchman or something. It's weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
And there's also like at this point, I'm just I think on one hand. I understand that criticism perfectly. Like, yeah, I feel like this could have just been 2D, and it still would have looked nice. But I feel like if this film has like anything that is new or interesting going for it, it is the new animation style. But like, it still sucks. Like, even if we ignore it,
Yeah.
that it's still a bad movie. My main issue with this, and it's like this movie. First off, this movie's plot is about SpongeBob and Patrick going on a road trip to Atlantic City or whatever in order to find Gary, his pet snail. And wait a minute, that's kind of like this, and that's similar to a plot of that
Yeah, no, it's
show,
literally just have you seen this snail again,
but
which by the
stretched
way is
out
a
into,
whole
but with a
classic
different type
episode.
of
But
story.
no, they just did that again.
Yeah, not
And then
even.
they just do a road trip again, which is just kind of the movie again, except less fun because SpongeBob and Patrick's dynamic is way less fun.
Yeah,
And oh boy, with this road trip movie, they get to their destination with a little less than an hour
the
left.
pacing of this
So
movie
great job,
sucks. Like,
guys.
there's very, they don't
Yeah.
even. It's so poorly paced. It's like the movie just like I don't know, just so the road trip element just does not last long. Half of it is spent on this weird ass dream sequence.
Oh yeah, with Keanu Reeves tumbleweed.
And
You
those
like
like
that?
weird ass zombie pirate things or whatever the fuck they are.
Which
It's
thing is, I really like how this movie incorporates, at least how the first two movies incorporate live action, but this movie does not well. It is so out of nowhere,
it
and it
makes
doesn't
no
fit.
sense in the context of the story. What
Yeah,
is the point of Keanu Reeves tumbleweed? What is the point of that? He's supposed to
it's
inspire
for Redditors to
SpongeBob.
go. It's for Redditors to go. Oh, it's Keanu, but no. What does he?
Sure,
What does he
sure.
add?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just SpongeBob. Like, so SpongeBob and yeah, it's just like I think he's supposed to inspire SpongeBob to have courage, but like, does he really need it that much? Because it feels like throughout the movie, he doesn't even really need it. So like, why is this the best way they thought of thinking about it? Like, it just feels so
I don't
weird, and
know.
it's not even funny. It's not funny. The
No.
sequence comes out of nowhere. It goes on for way too long. Danny Trejo randomly appears. It's so dumb. It doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense in the
the
context of the
random
movie.
like nonsense bits in Sponge Out of Water are at least funny, which
This
is
one
why I
is
like
just
that
like
movie.
out
This
of
isn't.
nowhere. It's not. There isn't
It's
really
not
anything
fun.
funny about
You
it,
know.
and it doesn't fit
Like,
into the story well at all. Like, it's not
no,
surreal in a good
not
way,
at
like it
all.
was in Sponge Out of Water, which was also
Yeah,
done in like a mixed way with its
and
surreal
and
quality.
see, at
But
least that
still,
movie is like consistently insane throughout, so it fits. This movie gets boring at
it
times, which is
does. It
another
is
thing.
so yeah. Like, I don't like. It's just so lame. One thing
Yeah,
that annoyed me is that so like we mentioned, there's this stupid show called Camp Coral, which is literally like
yep. Oh
SpongeBob
yeah. Oh
babies,
god,
and this
the
movie
Camp
tries
Coral
to
Reddit.
advertise that in some way
Okay.
with these weird ass
Yeah.
flashbacks of Camp Coral with SpongeBob meeting all of his friends there, which not only does it go against a bunch of continuity that the show established,
Yeah.
which is like on
Because
one hand like
SpongeBob made Sandy at tea at the tree dome. It doesn't add up.
yeah, also
It doesn't
SpongeBob
make
met
sense.
Squidward in Truth or Square in a flashback.
Yeah, don't forget
Even
about
though
Truth or
that
Square.
episode also kind of sucks, but still, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, and also isn't Mr. Krabs like much older than SpongeBob? Like, why
Yeah,
would
that's
he
so
be at the summer
weird.
camp? It's stupid.
It
Like, it's
doesn't make
just done,
sense.
and these
See,
flashbacks are just so dumb
yeah,
and cheesy, and it's trying
yeah.
so hard to pull out your
Okay, thing is,
heartstrings.
the thing about that is, I think they could have made a moment like that work, but the problem is it just feels so emotionally manipulative, so I can't get invested
Yeah,
in it.
same. Not to
Like,
mention, it doesn't even like work well. So like,
yeah.
SpongeBob is on trial, I guess, after the main villain of the movie named King Poseidon, even though it was
Who, by
established
the
that
way, is just voiced by Bubbles, so it
oh
just
yeah,
sounds the
him.
same.
Yeah, who puts him
Yeah,
on trial since he was the guy who stole Gary after Plankton sold it to him. Since like that's his plan of this movie when getting rid of SpongeBob for the formula, which I'll get more into that later. But it's like so he's on trial, and then all his friends come, and they like start to accompany him and recount these memories with SpongeBob, and it's like. Okay, so like I guess this is supposed to like inspire people. Like SpongeBob's
mhm.
actually a good person, despite him trying to steal the snail from the king. You know, shouldn't kill him. It
Yeah.
just feels forced. You know, it is so forced and out of nowhere, and trying so hard to manipulate the audience in such a meaningless way. Like with the Sandy flashback, Sandy shows up, and then SpongeBob, and then she says she wants to be a scientist, and then SpongeBob says, "Oh, you could be a scientist," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"No way!" And it's like Why? It's so just corny and so manipulative. I hate it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's so
It
it's
just,
annoying. I just don't
yeah, and
like it.
plus, even on top of that, there was that whole debate about whether even Steven Hillenburg wanted Camp Coral to be a thing that exists.
I mean, then
And then
he
this has been
said
like,
one day
I
they're
think there
gonna
was like
make
a whole thing.
SpongeBob babies, and then he said he'd be out of there by then. So like,
Yeah, so that's
wow.
what he said,
I'd
something like
say
that.
that
And there's
Camp
been like a
Coral.
whole dispute on that, which maybe he was involved, maybe he wasn't. Honestly, I don't even care if he like, even if he was, the whole thing is still just weird to me. Cause
Yeah,
like,
I don't
well, it just makes
understand.
it doesn't make the movie feel genuine. It's like, hi, this movie isn't like a movie we made for art or to conclude in a run of television. It's Camp Coral's gonna come out soon. Let's go advertise it in our big new movie.
It's
So
like what
that's
this
like
movie
a little
feels
bit
like. It's like a
annoying.
waste of a movie in general. Like it doesn't feel like the
Yeah,
story needed to be a movie at all. Like not even it could have
yeah.
been. I don't know. It's like it
I
could
don't
have
even
just
know if
been
it
a
could have been an
special.
episode because if it were an episode, it'd be
Would have
even
just
more
been a
similar
rehash. It
to
would have been
Vincent's
just a
copying.
mostly. Yeah, it would be mostly a rehash of Have You Seen the Snail? I guess, except it's like
Yeah.
longerly stretched out, and Scary was stolen for a different reason. So like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and also I feel like with this, they don't really do a great job of making sure why you should care that Gary's gone. I don't know. At least for me, their friendship in this doesn't feel like as genuine as it does in stuff like Have You Seen This Now or other stuff. So I shouldn't get invested in the Gary conflict much, even if it's like a repeat. It's still just weird. And
also,
like, oh yeah,
I also
go
want to
on.
mention, like, you know how some people criticize some of the celebrities in the other SpongeBob
Oh,
movies, and
oh, you
this
know,
one,
it's
it's
10
like,
times worse
yeah,
here. Like,
it is. Because, like, not only do we have Keanu Reeves, who already feels kind of out of place, we also have Aquafina, we have Snoop Dogg for some inexplicable
hmm.
reason.
I forgot about that. Yeah, Snoop Dogg's there.
He just randomly
That's like,
appears out of nowhere and starts rapping, I guess, during the stupid
hmm.
dream sequence detour. And then there's
Yep.
also like the soundtrack, which just feels so like weird. Like they play Take on Me, they play that like opening Bikini Bottom song that doesn't fit with SpongeBob at all. There's
Yeah.
this
Well,
credit
that's another thing. The
song.
music is so like
It's so
the music
bizarre.
in this is so weird because like there's like licensed music in the other ones. Well, that's not licensed. They got like artists to do songs for the other movies, but at least they like kind of fit SpongeBob's vibe. Here, there's like licensed music. They play fucking "Take on Me" at the end. This isn't SpongeBob to me. It doesn't feel like
Yeah,
SpongeBob.
there's like one.
It's so out of
There's
place.
yeah, I know. If there's like one other small thing I sort of like, that isn't the animation, it's probably that one musical number sung by everyone near the third act. It's not amazing or
Eh,
anything. The show has had better songs, but it's still a
yeah,
nice moment that I think works
it's
well. Not in
it's
the
all
context
right.
of the movie, it's kind of just eh. But for what it was, I think it's a nice musical
Yeah, I
number.
don't know.
That's it. That's
For
kind
me,
of
that
all.
didn't stand out much because SpongeBob has a long history of great songs, so it doesn't really live up
Still a good
for me.
song, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right, but eh.
So that's kind of where my compliments start. Everything is just kind of there isn't much to the
So,
plot at
I think my
all.
biggest complaint of this movie is honestly, I could forgive. Okay, well, maybe not forgive, but I could ignore certain story issues if it was like funny.
It
But
is. Oh
genuinely,
yeah,
there's
the
not a single gag I remember
the
from this
humor
movie
in
being
this
like,
movie is so tame for SpongeBob. Like
yeah.
honestly, say what you want about Sponge Out of Water, but the surrealness could get someone to laugh because of how like
Well, I
bizarre
laugh
it
at that
is.
movie a lot. It's a great, jolly old
It
time.
does have a lot of funny jokes in that movie, a handful. But this one, I can't remember any really good laughs out of at all. Like the humor is just so tame because like the story
Yeah.
is so tame and lame, so there isn't much clever or interesting jokes we get out of it at
Hmm.
all. Just like
The only
one.
jokes I can like actively remember being made are this like meta thing where SpongeBob's like, well, I forgot if it's SpongeBob or Patrick was doing like,
They talk about
oh, we're
how
gonna do
the
the road trip narrative, how they're gonna have a third act breakup, and then they just do that
and then
with
they
no sense of self
what
awareness.
was
Like, yeah,
what
sure.
was the point of making that self-aware joke of
And
Patrick and
keep in mind
SpongeBob?
that
Like,
breakup
isn't it
between
gonna be
SpongeBob and Patrick lasts like a minute,
yeah, it's
so
so
why do I care?
stupid. Like it's dumb because like they pointed out with Patrick saying it's like one of those buddy movies. And we're going on a road trip, and then SpongeBob just acts kind of like a jerk about it, weirdly saying actually it's a one hero jerk. It's stupid. What's the point of this
Yeah,
joke? Is it supposed to be payoff for later? It's dumb.
yeah. Yeah,
stupid. I don't understand the point of it. It's like it's a waste of a movie. I don't want. Why is this a movie? There's also another stupid pop song. Another thing I forgot to mention. They randomly start singing "Livin' La Vida Loca" while
yeah, I
they're
know
in.
that. That's so weird.
Like
Like,
what?
this isn't
This isn't
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob music. Like what? 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 It's so strange. And another weird character thing that always like confused me that I just felt a little weird is that like okay, so when SpongeBob goes on the road trip with Patrick, which also he
Uh,
doesn't really consider the absent of his job for some reason, which is a
yeah,
little weird, but I can
he
look past
doesn't tell
that.
anyone. He just kind of
He just kind
goes.
of goes with Patrick, yeah. And then
Yeah,
and then while it's gone, Mr. Krabs and Squidward are like struggling with the business is because SpongeBob's not here, which is something that has happened multiple times
it
in the
happens so
show.
much on the show. It
So it's
doesn't
like,
even feel
who
big.
cares? And then
There's
in
like
this one,
at least a dozen episodes where SpongeBob leaves the Krusty Krab. And they're like, "Well, we can't make Krabby Patties
we're
without
about
SpongeBob."
SpongeBob. It's like,
It's all
yeah,
the time.
yeah. There's even one when he gets fired, which is a pretty bad episode, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
we're like,
that one, and then like in this case, Mr. Krabs gets sad that SpongeBob isn't here to the point where he gives Plankton the formula, and then Plankton just like I guess he has it, and like he doesn't care that he won because
yeah, and
Mr.
that's so
Krabs
out
isn't
of
like
character for him. It's
it's
not
like
even like
he
doesn't even
says
have an
it's
arc in this
because
movie
that like
that should make him like want to
yeah,
do
he
that.
says that
It's
because it's like
weird.
Krabs isn't suffering, but like, what are you talking about? He is suffering. Did you not see him literally crying when he was giving you the formula? Like, what?
Yeah,
And then he just
the,
comes back, and then they go back to the I don't know, whatever, Atlantic City or whatever the hell
yeah.
it's called, and then
Oh, there's
they
another
do
thing about
the
the
Camp
The other thing
Codes.
about the Atlantis part I want to nitpick is so SpongeBob and Patrick are shown to at least take like a decent amount of time to get there, but then when Mr. Krabs, Plankton, Squidward, and Sandy show up, it's like really quick. Like what?
Oh yeah, that
How
is
come?
weird.
And if they were gonna do a road trip thing, how come they left the characters separated? If they're gonna make two trips, that just makes everything less fun.
Yeah,
Like why would they?
yeah.
This movie was so much wasted like stuff they could have done, but then they didn't do.
Yeah,
So,
I
oh
mean, I
well.
guess they implied that the sandwich thing they wrote and it goes at like really fast speeds, but that's probably why.
Yeah, but
But
even
still,
still, I don't know. It's
it's
like an
also like
implication. So
yeah.
it doesn't.
Also, the
I
road
don't
trip is
know.
just like what I hate about that thing is that it's just spent on this like meaningless dream sequence that goes on for too long. Like that's it, and then all of a sudden they're at their destination, and then they like bet and like money while
Yeah.
living the La Vida Loca just plays in the
See, at least the
background.
unrelated stuff in Sponge Out of Water is like tied to the plot, very loosely, mind you, but it all ties together in the end. But with this, like, I don't know. I guess we got the Keanu Tumbleweed who comes back and helps SpongeBob give his dramatic speech. But what else does it give us? Like, really,
Yeah.
it's too much. It's too much.
One thing
That's
I
all.
have randomly in my notes is I remember there was a part where Keanu Reeves just mentioned Skype exists.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's
Skype
weird
exists
too.
in the SpongeBob world.
SpongeBob should not mention modern technology. It
I mean,
doesn't
it's
work.
Keanu Reeves, so it's like a celebrity, so we don't have
I
SpongeBob
mean, even
saying.
still, just
It's
it
still
being in
weird
the
in like a movie. Yeah,
SpongeBob world is
Keanu Reeves
weird.
just feels out of place here. Like I don't know. Like he doesn't do a bad
Yeah,
job here, but he just feels like he just feels weirdly
yeah,
inserted here. Like I feel like he's in the movie too much, even though he isn't
yeah.
really.
And
It's weird. Like he
you
just plays
sponge
a
out of water
tumbleweed.
for anything. It doesn't waste time on anything. You get bam apocalypse, bam time travel, bam they're on up on water, bam superheroes.
And they just
It
jump
doesn't
right
waste
into it.
time, which if anything, I think that gives the movie like I think it makes the movie very like well paced because it doesn't waste your time. Well, not well, you know what I mean. It just kind of it goes by fast compared to this. It's really boring. It's just kind of a slog, and
Yeah.
like I don't know. You could cut out sizable chunks of this movie, and you get the same point. It just like it's so dragged, despite not even being that long. It feels so dragged, and then
Yeah.
it's like
It's also the longest SpongeBob movie, by the
yeah,
way.
I
Despite
noticed that.
having
Out
like
of
like the out of all of them, it doesn't feel like something that should be a
out
movie
of
at
all of them,
all.
it's the most bare bones for sure.
Yeah,
But
definitely. I don't know, man. I just like it kind of represents the issue like so many people have with modern SpongeBob. And this isn't even the last SpongeBob movie. There's still multiple like coming on the
yeah,
way, and they're all in CG 3D now, I guess, which is
yeah,
kind of weird. Like,
I hate Nickelodeon so much, but
yeah,
sure,
I
we're
don't
getting
want.
it.
I feel like they should just like Just
Well, they should end it, but that
that's not
SpongeBob.
gonna
Okay,
happen.
let me explain. The Nickelodeon has directly stated they want SpongeBob to be like their MCU. I'm not even joking. We're having a SpongeBob universe with movies and multiple shows running at the same time.
Yeah, that's
Even
why
though they
there's
have,
like two. That's like
even though
there's
they
two
have most of the
spin-offs
same
already.
writing staffs and like writers, so like,
Yeah, it's just
so
annoying. And then
just
there's
stupid.
like more movies on the way. At this point, we're gonna get as many SpongeBob movies as a Land Before Time. If
Yeah,
it keeps up this way, it's just yeah. I don't
so
know.
sad.
It's
What
sad.
has SpongeBob
Rest in peace,
become?
SpongeBob.
You know,
I
I
wish.
will say, if I will give this movie credit for anything, I would honestly take this movie over like some of season 12 because at least it's not like assaulting my brain with faces and like just
At
toddler
least the
shit.
humor, despite it being very tame and lame, at least it's not always dependent on wacky, over exaggerated faces. Haha.
Yeah. Another thing, it's not even just joke. It feels there's like a lack of jokes, if that makes sense. There's kind of
It's
not
nothing
a lot
because like there's
to it.
nothing funny about the scenario they're in. There's nothing. There's no clever or interesting jokes they can think of with this idea, which is just lame. Which is weird because SpongeBob is known for
Yeah.
taking like simple ideas and making good jokes out of them. Like
Yeah,
there's an
exactly.
episode in season one called The Paper, and that episode's good, and it's interesting how the writers are able to like make it an entertaining, fun episode that revolves around a piece of paper. So
Well, see,
like
SpongeBob revolves around simplicity, right?
yeah.
Like, look at like your favorite episode, Chocolate with Nuts. That's an episode where they're going door to door selling chocolate. Wet Painters. The goal is they have to paint a house. A
Yeah,
lot of the best episodes revolve around the simplicity of it and how much jokes they can get
exactly,
out of
but I
that.
guess they just
So,
couldn't
like,
think of any good ones for this one because they already
yeah,
used this concept.
and that's honestly, I think that's part of why SpongeBob has had a hard time being recaptured great as a film. I think SpongeBob has always had a bad time with going over 11 minutes. Even in like the early seasons, some of the episodes people don't like as much, like Ugg or The Sponge Who Could Fly, are like the 22-minute ones. So there's like kind of a disconnect there. And then the movie got it right because they were being big with it. They knew what they had to do. So the movie worked well. But then, like we've talked about, Sponge Out of Water isn't like, as a movie, is not paced very well. And then even like you've everyone knows about how Truth or Square and Atlantis Squarepants, they're not that good either. Point is, I think SpongeBob, if anything, one of their biggest struggles is going beyond that 11-minute threshold. So if you get a movie like this where there's barely any story to it and barely any opportunities you can make jokes, of course it's going to turn out like this because they barely have anything. So yeah, that's just kind of my tangent. I think that's part of why we've never had an amazing SpongeBob film after the first one.
Yeah.
So I
It's
don't
like
know.
they're also
SpongeBob's
running out of ideas. I mean, as soon as I heard they made an episode on a video on an video, this is I can't speak. Episode that focused on SpongeBob getting an addiction to biting his nails, I knew that the show was starting to like run out of
Yeah,
ideas and just was trying to
yeah,
be gross with SpongeBob getting just biting everybody's nail. It's just gross. Like come
yeah.
on. And like
It's too
yeah, it's
much.
just become a shell of its former self, and this is like self, and it's like one of this movie kind of represents that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think honestly around this point was like, I think when I was around starting to notice the well, not like the decline because that was after, but 2020 would have been like, I think around when season 11 finished and we were on like season 12, at least like well, at least roughly season 12 was like 2019. The point is, around this era was when SpongeBob was like, we were in our worst state, and then that's when a bunch of like the spin-offs and stuff was getting announced.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to call this the beginning of the end for SpongeBob because it's kind of an overused thing to say when talking
yeah.
about the show.
This movie also
Yeah.
released at a bad time. Like it
Oh yeah, it
was
was like I
released
think
during the
around when
pandemic.
COVID
I know
happened.
it
So
released like somewhere else or whatever. I don't remember the specific. I think it was like in the U.S. or something at a different time in early 2021. Might be wrong about that, but oh well. But
I
yeah,
think I remember it got released around. It was supposed to be released around COVID, but then that didn't happen. And I think in theaters in that brief time in summer
yeah.
2020, it was in Canadian theaters. But you know me, I didn't go because I'm like, well, I don't care that much. And I was hearing mixed things about it at the time, so I didn't have very good first impressions of it.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. But honestly, I think. Do you know about what the movie was originally going to be? The whole "It's a Wonderful Sponge" thing of the cats. Did you
I
ever
think the
know about all
cats
this?
thing was a different scrapped SpongeBob movie. I don't think that It's a Wonderful
I
Sponge
think.
was supposed to be about the cat alien
Well,
thing. I think that was
okay.
a different movie as a whole.
Well, okay. Those were. I think there was either two ideas, or they were being made around
I
the
think this was
same
supposed to
time.
be an It's a Wonderful Life parody, and at that point, I kind of think I would prefer that because it would at least be a more interesting story than just rehashing another plot.
You
Not
know,
even.
I feel like the "It's a Wonderful Life" thing would have come after, because I can like imagine this, like all the flashbacks. They'd be like, "Oh, SpongeBob, you definitely have affected people in your life. You're not worthless," and they just play the Camp Coral flashbacks to show what like SpongeBob was supposed to do if he never existed. I could like imagine this.
Yeah,
I don't know if
honestly,
what they were.
honestly, this is
Yeah.
insanely nitpicky and not a problem. But
Okay.
not even the title of this movie is original. I know it's probably just a coincidence. But there's a mobile game I used to play that was called Sponge on the Run. So
Oh, there was. I didn't even know about
yeah, it
that.
was based off
That
of the
sucks.
Sponge Out of Water movie. So
Ah, okay.
yeah, so like
Oh, I think I might know about that game. I might have played it. There was a
so,
SpongeBob mobile game I played around
yeah,
that
that
time.
was the
But
mobile game I played. But like,
yeah,
yeah, it's like okay. I mean, that's like just that's not a huge issue. I bet it was just a coincidence, but just something
mhm,
funny I felt like pointing out. But I
yeah.
don't think I have anything else to say. I think I
Oh
already.
wait, I can't believe we've gone this entire time without mentioning how fucking lame the villain is.
Oh,
Poseidon.
yeah,
Remember?
even yeah,
Yeah,
Poseidon, who's like even
well,
though
by the way, it
he
doesn't make sense. Neptune's supposed to be the ruler of the sea. Didn't even get the continuity right, guys.
it doesn't make
But
sense. They just thought of King Poseidon as the antagonist, and then he gets
like,
redeemed
sure, buddy.
after learning about friendship or whatever. It's very lame. Like I have nothing to say about this
Yeah,
villain. He's just very like he's just a very lame antagonist, and like
yeah. You just
I
sort
don't
of
know.
like
He's
the
just a
thing
worse
is,
version of King
it,
Neptune, to be
see,
honest.
Dennis is memorable. He had presence. The Cyclops was memorable. Plankton had presence. Burger Beard, we didn't talk about him much when we talked about Sponge Out of Water, but I think he's a decently entertaining antagonist. I think he works well. But this guy, he's so lame. He gets defeated because SpongeBob talks to him about his feelings. What is this, Steven Universe? Like, look at him. He's
We
pathetic.
wrote Steven Universe a lot on this podcast.
Yeah, well, it came up organically, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just such a lame way to redeem him, and then also he just makes me mad because it's the Bubbles voice. You can't fool me, guys. Come on, you're just reminding me of the bass character who rapped and not this lad.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my last thing. Honestly, I think this is the least interesting out of the three in terms of what to
It's
talk
just
about.
lame. It's mostly
Yeah,
boring and there's just nothing to it. And it's also
yeah,
annoyingly corporate, like I said, with all the Camp Coral stuff.
yeah.
I give
So,
it,
yeah, I don't know.
should we get to our ratings? I haven't done
Yeah,
one
I
yet.
would go a low 3, high 2 on this. I do not like this movie at
I give
all.
it a 3 as
I've-
well. It does suck.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's SpongeBob. And like a bit of a
Uh,
shorter episode than usual.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
well, I mean
Well, we
sometimes
got
we
out a
need
really big last one, so
yeah,
And
a nice
I'm
breather in between.
yeah, not to spoil, but I think our next episode might be pretty big. So we'll
Yeah.
see when that happens.
Yeah, but
But
also yeah, sorry for the once again audio difficulties with Brian. We
which might actually there might not even be in it. We'll see how he edits
and
this.
I don't these are usual. It's hard to cut off stuff like that. I guess for
Yeah.
me, I don't
We'll
know.
figure
It
that
takes
out
a
when we
long
figure
time.
it
I
out.
don't know.
But
But yeah, I'm sorry if you have been hearing that, all the cuts and whatnot in the middle of videos. We just have technical difficulties at times. I don't know, we're still not perfect at this
yeah,
podcast thing, despite being
yeah.
26
Oh
episodes
well.
in. But oh
Yeah.
well, I
But
hope
anyway, I'd say
you
we had
enjoyed this.
a pretty good time here.
Yeah,
SpongeBob and that golden era is one of my like favorite shows, so it's nice to talk about parts of it. You
yeah,
know, all that junk. And yeah.
yeah.
Make sure not to be too mean to Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and good night.
Yeah,
Goodbye,
see
everybody.
ya. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.